All right, guys, Glenn is back and he brought friends, reinforcements. We're going to be talking about equity loans. So, thinking about living in Costa Rica, you might need a little help. We're going to get into it in a minute. This video is for you. Hey, guys, I'm Michael Allen for TravelCostaRicaNow.com. TravelCostaRicaNow.com is a travel agency, so go to TravelCostaRicaNow.com. Fill out the 4-minute form. You'll be that much closer to the vacation of a lifetime. We're like you. Maybe you, having best friends who live in Costa Rica, who know Costa Rica, totally hooking up your Costa Rica vacation. If you haven't subscribed, please do. But if you want to see videos as we put them up, hit the notification bell. And yes, we have a relocation retreat coming up in a few months. All that is in a link in the description. So if Costa Rica's on your map, thinking about you might want to live here, but you're not quite sure, that retreat might be for you. I would love to see you there, Glenn. Thanks for coming back. France, right? France?
Nice
France.
to meet you, Michael.
All right, we're talking about equity loans, but you know what? I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing about them. So I'm going to explain. So Glenn, why do you give equity loans? Who are you?
Well,
and who is Franz?
first of all, I started off in Canada doing equity loans way back in the 90s. We did them for a lot of people. We made a lot of money for a lot of people. We did hundreds of millions of dollars in Canada. When I came down to Costa Rica, it was the last thing I thought I'd ever do here because people told me this was a third world country. And it wasn't until I realized, once we got into the residency business, that is actually the perfect business to have here because people can't borrow money for at least 4 to 5 years until they get permanent residency.
And that's probably on the early side.
On the earliest side at these days, yeah, things are taking a while. So a lot of people want to get started before that. They want to start a business. They want to get their house going, whatever the case may be. And so they come to us for a loan.
So why did you stop doing them in Canada? Sounds like it was going good.
It was going good. We did really good. I just didn't like the kind of business and the kind of people that we attracted. So I got out of the business because I didn't want to deal with that class of people. The difference is when I came to Costa Rica and I realized it's a different class of people that need the same kind of money and are willing to pay for this money. For instance, if you have a B&B in, say, wherever, it doesn't matter, Santa Teresa, and you want it to work, we'll help you with the money to get that going. And if that makes you money, then I would say that's a positive way of using the money. And so that's the kind of loans we like.
Well, let's go back real quick. What class of people that you didn't like in Canada?
Well, the people that came for high interest loans in Canada were not, I mean, you can go to the bank and get low interest loans if you have any good credit at all. So you're left with people with less credit, you know.
The quality of the borrowers is very high in Costa Rica because the banks make it extremely difficult to be able to get credit, even high credit. So that's why the borrowers we work with are generally people who have excellent credit and have other options, but most often we end up being a great option, mainly because of speed.
So it sounds like people that you might have been dealing with in Canada were people are trying to consolidate credit card debt and had more money problems than actually looking for their future, a future dream or something.
And that dream here is not good. We're not good at consolidating debt in Costa Rica. If you want to borrow our money, you need to make money with our money. You need to do something positive to get you going forward. Because you used our money.
It's not to get you back into the black. Or whatever. Is that red or black, they say?
Yeah. No, it's not going to work for that.
So it's not going to save you. This is for people that are fulfilling dreams and looking into their future.
A lot of people will come to us. This is generally normally what happens is that, you know, they'll set a budget of $200,000 for a house. They'll find a house that's worth $300,000. The wife will want the house. The husband will give in. They'll come to us for the other $100,000. That's a very, very common situation.
All right, so France, where do you come in on this?
Okay, so I process all the equity loans, process and supervise all the equity loans they get us. So I'm the person in charge of when the client has contact with the company until they achieve their loan.
Okay, so let's walk through. So let's make this way, way simple. Okay, me, a gringo, wants to live in Costa Rica. I've got some money. I want to purchase a house. I have quite a bit. I could do a big down, but I can't. My wife's not going to be happy unless the budget's $300,000. I only have $200,000. Mm-hmm. I hear you give out loans. Is this loan sharky? You live in Costa Rica. How can I trust you? How do I find out that your agency, you in France, are legit? Because you know people that give money. You probably know the Sopranos or something. I don't know.
No, it's really nothing along those lines.
He wants to hit me. He's like, no.
No, so the first thing we do when we have contact with a client is that we analyze the situation they're in, what they're trying to accomplish, and we try to find the best credit options for them possible. Something I like to go over with, especially North American clients, is asking about what equity do they have in North America, because generally that could be a little bit of a better loan for them. And if that's the case, then we accomplish our job, which was help the person that was trying to fulfill an objective to fulfill it in the best way possible. That's what we focus on. Very often, that is with us, right? And so, what do? We find we get the client, we analyze the situation, we make sure we create a loan that's attractive for the private market and as well beneficial for the client. Going over the parameters that are important for the client. We won't get into that in this conversation. But once we have that, we put the loan together. We make sure it's a loan that it is meeting all their criteria, and we help the person complete their objective, have monthly payments on this asset that they're purchasing. In this case, the example you gave me.
Okay, yeah, let's walk me through those. So, okay, I like you guys. I want the loan. What am I doing? What's my next steps? Where are we going? So you kind of know my situation. I got 200,000, but I need 300,000. I picked you guys. What are we doing?
Well, we come out and evaluate the property, make sure it's worth the amount that you say it's worth. We go from there. We analyze it to see what the true value is, and we'll lend up to 50% of that value.
So you're lending on the house that I want to buy, or the land, or whatever it is, right? The business or the...
Correct. In this case, you're going to be acquiring the asset. So when you're acquiring the asset, we're doing the loan at the same time. This will be all the money will be happening at the same time. At the same time, you'll be getting your asset, and I'm the person in charge to make sure that happens.
All right. So you assess the land, or you assess my property that's going to happen. Then what are we doing?
The most important thing is to accurately assess it, because, for instance, you could say you're in Jaco. That's okay, but we're in Jaco. And when a person says, I'm only 10 minutes from Jaco, that's not Jaco anymore. That's now another part of the country in all reality. So if it's in a really, really good area, then the rates will be good. If it starts to get outside of our perimeters, interest rates will go up. We try to work on properties that are in a good area, so that if something does go wrong, that we can get rid of the property and move on.
Okay, so that would, did I hear that right? So if you're in like places where there's a lot of people and you can, like, let's say, resell the property if everything goes south, as opposed to this little house 10 miles up the mountain.
Right.
And
liquidity is a huge part.
So you don't, yeah. So like,
and it's not for us; it's the lender.
You don't want the house.
We don't want the house,
right? You don't want the house.
But worst case scenario, what if we do get the house, and what are we going to do to get rid of it? Because our lender just wants his money back, so he would really want to get rid of that house as fast as possible, right, and get his money back. So if we pick a property that's out in the boonies and nobody's ever going to be interested in it, then it's not good for the lender and it's not good for our company. So we try to make sure that we're dealing with good properties in good locations with good borrowers and good lenders.
So maybe this is a good time, since you kind of mentioned it. What are the things that I'm not getting a loan on? I have the money. I mean, you see that I have the money. Is it location? I'm picking the wrong place.
Raw land without permits is extremely difficult, if not almost.
Well, you wouldn't do that, right?
We if we're going to lend at all on land, it'll be much less. It'll be maybe 10% of the value of the land. Why? If you don't have permits, it may not be worth as much as you think. Because if you can't get water permits, for instance, and you're in Wanacasta, the land becomes useless. You may have purchased it for $1 million, but if you can't get water on your properties,
I would question that guy what he's doing anyway. So I'm not sure if I'd lend him anything.
It's extremely true. But I do know a lady who's up there. She talked to everybody. There was this particular piece of land in Wanacasta that was like the nicest view. Everything was perfect. She asked all the top realtors in town, should I, get involved in this? It doesn't have permits yet. And they're going, that's a diamond piece of land. If you can get that at all costs. Yes, she got it. She never got a water letter. 2 years later, she's still fighting for water. She has to truck water in to get water on her property. There's no other way until they figure out that problem, and she's not important on the list.
All right, so land without permits or land that's in Egypt type of thing.
We do have a development right now that we're likely going to end up funding this week or next week, and it is raw land. However, because of the scope of the project, they're about $350,000 in just permits and plan.
Oh, so it's obviously a serious endeavor.
Yeah.
When you're that in cash wise, and only in Spanish it's trámite, in English the word is permit cycle, I guess. Then it's a little bit different.
Is there anything else you wouldn't loan? I mean, just basic stuff. Even though I have the money,
we don't lend on concession, and we don't lend on anything with wheels.
Gee, I can't understand why you do that. Explain real briefly concession.
Concession is when you have good land down by the beach that you're not allowed to own, but you can rent it from the government as a concession for whatever amount of years, 99 years. And that's good. Like, let's say there's a business that you want to put on there, and because you put a business like a bar on the beach, I know in one beach they did exactly that, and they make money each and every day. So it's worth to be on a concession land if you're going to make money. But for the rest of the people, it's definitely not going to work. You're going to lose your land. You may lose your land at the end of the term. Let's say there's only 3 years left on the concession. You don't know if you're going to be able to renew it. It's up to the government at that time.
So obviously you're looking at all those things to know if your loan's going to be.
The criteria would be something inscribed in the National Registry of Costa Rica as a property.
So let's keep going.
Concessions aren't. Okay.
Let's go with the 200, 300,000 thing. You like me, you like what I'm doing and where I'm doing it at. Well, I don't know. Let's talk about percentages. This is where people seem to get all, your underwear in a twist, because it's like, oh my gosh, you're this close to loan sharking.
Before we talk about our prices, let's talk about the bank prices. If you're not the perfect Tico with the perfect Tico wife, you're not going to get a 7% loan, no matter what you think.
Okay, so that's what's common here.
Yes,
so almost subsidized. 7% is almost subsidized by the government, certain institutions,
and that's with non-blemished credit.
Exactly. So if you're not in that category, then interest rates goes up dramatically. For instance, if you want a luxury vehicle, if you want a boat for your business, if you're buying a traditional Tico home, then you might get a good rate. But if you're trying to buy anything like a car, a boat, a swimming pool, those rates go through the roof. They're charging 18, 20, 24%. We've had 24% loans from the bank.
Before loans, I worked in real estate investment and projects that were mainly goal towards residential income. And when that group was trying to leverage their own properties, they're going to the bank and they weren't achieving anything close to 7%, because, 7% I think is even a low rate right now. That would have been maybe a more accurate rate a couple of years ago. I would say that 7% today maybe is 8.5%, closer to 9%. And that time, when I went with that group to get these loans, and these are millions of dollars in assets that are clean, the best we were able to get was 12% in dollars. Why? Because this was not primary housing. This was a business loan to make more money. Therefore, the bank
changes everything.
Which changes everything. So for us, the main goal isn't like won't change your interest rates that much, but the banks make it very easy for us to be extremely competitive.
Yeah, but that's a Tico loan. What about a Gringo loan? I might even have my residency yet.
Then you're not getting a loan
from you.
From Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's my point. So that's kind of my point. So we're just talking about if now that's a Tico wife, I guess, if you married into a Tico. You know what I mean? Or is that still messy?
The paperwork you have to show a Costa Rican bank has to be extremely simple for them to analyze. Even if you're Costa Rican, but you're operating a business, now you're in a totally different bracket. If you're salaried, if you're Costa Rican, if you're buying what you call a very typical Costa Rican home, you could have a little more facilities for that type of credit. But if you're a foreigner coming, obviously from abroad, most likely you won't be able to achieve a loan with almost any institution that's like a bank.
Right. Okay. So now, we're proceeding. How so what is the interest rate? You probably can't say exactly, but what ballpark are we looking at?
We kind of say it's between 12 to 16, depending on the loan. If you're going to go 50% LTV, which means if your house is worth 200 and you want to get 100, which is right at the 50% LTV, that's kind of the worst thing. That's the worst for us. We try to keep our loans at 40, 30% LTV. 30% LTV is a nice place to be. It's comfortable for everybody. And if we can do that, then our interest rates will stay at the low end. If it's not,
more risky, I guess,
yeah,
is
more
what
risky
you're kind of saying.
maybe 16%. If it's commercial, it might be 16%.
And most loans really sit between 13 and 15% a year.
Yeah,
that's like $1,000, $100,000, $200 a month for every $100,000.
The other thing to remember is that with us, you don't pay principal, so you're only paying interest. So your interest payments are much cheaper than a traditional loan. That's important too for a lot of people. You will have to pay the loan back at the end, but in our case, we're called GAP for a reason. We are the gap to get you to where you're going. If you want to go to the bank, we suggest you got 3 years to get there. We do a 3-year term. You got 3 years to get into the bank, and go with other options that you may have that are cheaper than us.
Just out of curiosity, and it's kind of a personal question. What's maybe the ratio of people that default?
Well, up until
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic, we didn't have a single person default. We had 10 years of no foreclosures. Once the pandemic came, we had a couple of foreclosures, but our rate is really, really low because we work with lenders that we can talk to. We try to stay as far away from any kind of shark that comes around us, and believe me, they do come and try to borrow or lend their money through us.
Is this like a money laundering thing?
Well, we get people coming, yeah, but the people the good news with us is a lot of our lenders are actually people who sold their property in Canada or the USA, and of course they bought it back in the 30s or 40s or 50s, and now it's worth $1 million or $2 million or $7 million, and they come down because they retired and they have their money and they want to bring it here, and they do want to do something down here. So rather than buying a bar on the beach, they'll put their money out with us. And what I always try to tell everybody, just at 12%, for every 100,000 that you put out with us, you're making $1,000 a month. So if you got $1 million making $10,000 with us a month, why start a business? It doesn't make any sense. And in that sense alone, as a lender, this is one of the best things you can do in Costa Rica to make money.
All right. So what makes you, in real estate, they used to laugh, or there's no, everyone's a real estate agent here. Well, who are you guys? What makes you legal? Are you just guys got some money somewhere? Or you got some people? Well, what makes whatever you're doing all on the up and up?
I actually passed the exam for a broker in Canada back in the 90s. So I was licensed in Canada. I do know the rules. I do know the laws, and I understand the laws and rules in Costa Rica. I've been here 22 years, and I've been doing this since I got here. But I officially started doing it on paper in 2008.
Who's watching you? What's the entity of Costa Rica that's making sure you guys are right?
Really, every single deal it gets watched
because of every step you have to go through,
and more because every single deal goes to the National Registry of Costa Rica with a notary, which in Costa Rica that's much more than.
So this isn't like you meet the guy. You don't meet me around the corner and give me $100,000.
We don't touch the money. It never comes to us. We facilitate the deal between the lender and the borrower. Once the deal is ready to go, the lender will send the money to the borrower. We will get our commissions, and that's as simple as it is.
And simultaneously, the documentation is being signed and inscribed in the National Registry. On our website, we have our last 200 loans closed, more or less.
Well,
you can actually see all the loans that we've done on our website.
All right, because I think we have touched on some of the questions. We've done this video before, but it may be maybe a little bit more basic. I think can you think of any other questions that people might have? So the process is, people are kind of watching this process because everything needs to be accounted for, right? I mean,
yes, and the last leg is the most important one, which is the inscription into the National Registry. That it's basically public documentation that we're inscribing into the National Registry with a lawyer that's doing the documents, and every single loan gets checked. So I
feel like getting a loan.
There was an important point I'd like to touch when it came to foreclosures and let's say the worst case scenario, because the realistic worst case scenario that we look at really is just the borrower having to sell their property sooner. I mean, this doesn't really happen very often at all. But I mean, things that get totally out of control, let's say, and you say you're probably not going to end up losing, or the lender is going to end up foreclosing your property. You're probably going to end up doing a conciliation, communication on if the house was worth 200,000 and only 100,000 got lent. Well, maybe you can fire sell the property for 180,000 and still walk away with a great deal of your money, and the lending entity receive their money back. So that's really the most often worst case scenario.
Yeah.
One of the properties we took back was a penthouse, and the fellow, he opened a call center and thought that would work. It didn't, and he actually called me. So he called me and he says, I don't think I can pay for the penthouse. He says, but I am a big boy. I took a risk and I realized that I made a bad decision, and I know I'm going to lose my house, and I know I can drag this out in court for a long time and try to make everything miserable for you, but I'd like to just give you the keys and sign some sort of paper that I'm done. I said, well, if you actually do that, you become a hero, because you don't lose you don't get a bad credit for that. You did everything right, and there's no blemish on you when you do that. If you do take us through the foreclosure, you have a foreclosure on your record, and that's probably not going to be good down the road for you. So we try to work with people that have problems and get them out of the problem.
Yeah, it doesn't do anybody. The worst thing you want to do, well, really anywhere, is start lawsuit stuff going here.
Communication.
And we don't want property. Funny, people think we want property, but we don't. I mean, what are you going to do with it? I have a house. I don't need another one, right? It's just a problem. I have to get tenants. I have to figure it out. I have to, paint it and get it ready for a sale. All these things. I just want to make my $1,000 a month with my $100,000 loan. I didn't want to get dragged into a foreclosure. So our lenders really aren't interested in taking back the property. This is another country where they don't know the rules and the laws and how to do this. So it's not something that they want to do. It's not fun for anybody, and we try to stay away from foreclosures. We help both sides.
So were you kind of being risky when you knew dude's trying to start a call center, and you're going, well, that shit ain't gonna work?
No, because the call center that he was doing was for like an Amazon company. It was a legit business, but okay, the catch was he said he wanted to do it in Grecia, and his reason for that was
what?
He wanted to do it in Grecia.
Okay, explain
Grecia is a small town just past the airport. It's a small town where there's a lot of rich Tico people, and all the kids graduate in the USA. And his opinion was, well, if they're graduating in the USA and coming back here to Grecia with this perfect English, I have perfect people to work on the phones. What he didn't realize is, no, when they come back, they don't stay in Grecia. They go downtown and work where the big dollars are. I mean, because now they know English and they studied abroad. So his thinking didn't make sense. I told him that at the time. I said, you sure you thought this all the way through? Because I just think if they're that educated, when they come back, they're going to want bigger things.
And then again, he puts money up for the penthouse. It's not like you. I mean,
yeah, I know the penthouse was worth a lot of money. Poor guy lost large, and our lender. Yeah, I mean, he knew, and I told him.
I like the fact he said he was a big boy. That's
and
nice.
That was, and we worked with him. Very nice guy, and he understood the risk. And I told him when we did the call center, I said, okay, Grecia and all that, because the one thing that was a stumbling block for me was when he said Grecia. I kind of thought, this is not.
I would have, my ears would have went up on that one too a little bit. Now, I would see, yes.
But he said he had all the answers. He knew what he was doing, and that he had done this before, and this was old news to him. And the fact that, and he knew Grecia because he lived in Grecia. So I said, okay, well, this is an angle that I'm not used to. If you say they're all going to come back to Grecia and work for you, it probably would work. It sounds like it would be a good thing. And of course, no, they were doctors and lawyers when they came back. So the last thing they wanted to do was go work in a call center.
So maybe just kind of a few different people who could benefit from you guys. So you said it a couple of times, but maybe just go over who should be thinking about you. Because I get tired of the people that go, I would never do that. That's a ripoff. I get those comments. We get them. Who
don't use our
it's not for everybody
unless it's going to make you money. I would say that's rule number one. Or do something good in your life. If you see a house that's worth $600,000 and you can get it for $300, but you only have $200, this might be a good deal.
Business too?
We also work very well when people are filling a gap. As in, they came to Costa Rica, they liked something they saw. They do have the means to purchase, but they don't have the money now. As in, they're waiting on windfalls, they're waiting on certain things are happening in the country.
And they don't want to wait.
And they don't want to wait. And that's when interest rate isn't a huge factor. Is do you want this now, or do you want to wait until your plans, wherever you're planning, finish to do it? Because that's the perfect formula for balloon structured loans. So people buying property, people wanting to expand in their certain business using their equity.
Yes.
And people filling a gap that's controlled by a external windfall, that they want to do something now. That's financially doesn't make a really big difference.
And sees the benefit of your service instead of looking at it like a total negative light of
a company that needs a couple of extra trucks to make more money. That's a good business. Maybe you don't
have to wait. It's
exactly. You have a tour company, you need an extra bus, and if you had an extra bus, you can make a lot of extra money. That's a good reason.
And it's not to toot our own horn, but when I speak to a client and he tells me, "Hey, Franz, so I got pre-approved in the bank for about % less than you guys," and he says, "But I'm going to work with you guys because every time I go to the bank, I get a colonoscopy." It makes me feel great because one of our approaches really is we ask for the paperwork that's important. We ask for the paperwork that's relevant to the deal. We don't just have a list of a 50-point checklist that we fill regardless if it makes sense or not.
Yeah, if you've never gone through the Costa Rica system in anything, I don't know,
We also try to work with lawyers that we work with in the past because they've done loans with us in the past. Once you've done a loan or two with us, you kind of know what to do. Our lawyers are extremely experienced in doing these kinds of loans, so we like working with them. You can use your own lawyer, but when we use the lender's lawyer, they tend to not understand the loan business, and they tend to ask all the wrong questions.
They muddy the waters.
And they ask the wrong questions that don't help the borrower in any way, just other than to scare them out of the deal.
See, I don't want people to think that that's where they're going to go, "Oh, you don't want me to bring my own lawyer. You must be doing something wrong. You're trying to pull a fast one, Glenn."
Yeah.
Franz.
We have lenders.
You know what I mean? I've heard that before.
I'm happy to work with anybody.
Right.
Here's the thing.
It just would make it.
How we get our lenders is because people do come with their lenders, and we like those ones. And we say, well, now we got a new lender to add to the list, or a new lawyer to add to the list, right? Because if we have a good lawyer that comes around, we want to keep working with them. And so there are people that have their own lawyer, and that's fine, and we'll work with them. If you want us to recommend one, our lawyers are.
Okay, I just want to. I'm just repeating, comments people say. I think you've answered most of the questions, guys. If you're interested, and this seems like something you could benefit from, email me info@travelcostaricanow.com. I'll get you in touch with Glenn and Franz. And we didn't mention this. Now, Glenn also does immigration, but it's really not him. It's his wife that owns the business. So don't think he's trying to bunch of eggs in different baskets. He does the equity loan kind of side of the business, and his wife does the immigration side. He represents the immigration side because his English is just a little bit better than his wife's. That's also, if you're interested in your residency, you can also get a hold of me. I'll get you in touch with Glenn. Anyway, Franz, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Glenn. I'm sure we'll see you again. Yep. Guys, I'm Michael Allen, TravelCostaRicaNow.com. Peace, guys. Hope it helps. Things are going to pop up. If you're thinking about living or traveling anywhere, always do your homework and research. And if it's Costa Rica, I'm going to put my videos up against anybody's. All right, man. Ciao.